Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of In From Japan Interviews. This is the first one we've done in quite some time. As always, I'm your host, Erroll Moss, and with me today we have a comic book artist, also known as the Kaiju King, apparently. Has worked on Godzilla, Ultraman, Transformers, all these awesome comics, bunch of other stuff. Matt Frank.
Hey, thanks for having me. Always glad to be on a fresh new show. At least new to me, anyway.
Oh yeah, yeah. We're not huge, but we get who we can.
We're not huge, but we can get our D-list guests on the show. No, I'm just kidding. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. I had been waiting to I need to get a guest because we mostly do our podcast is mostly about video games, Japanese video games and such.
Nice.
But I always try to throw some tokusatsu news and stuff in there.
Right on.
So I'm like, we got to get somebody who's related to that genre of stuff.
No, that's I love that. I love that. Yeah, I do the same thing. I do a video game YouTube channel called Rage Select, and I'm a frequent co-host on there. And normally we do whatever's new, whatever's coming out, whatever's popular. But every now and then I will make the main host Jeff let me play some obscure kaiju game what's it called? like Gamera 2000 or Robot Alchemic Drive or stuff like that. So I get it. I get trying to shoehorn in your interest into other people's spaces.
I mean, half the time it does count. I was talking about Kamen Rider, and I was like, the reason this counts is because they did a motif one time with one of their motifs with video games in this one series, and fine, we'll allow it.
Allow it. I like that. Yeah, man.
But yeah, so my first question for you, which is kind of how you really got started with art and just comic books, and just kind of your career path in general, what that has been like. Kind of a big one, but I wanted to start with that.
No, it's a fair question. I mean, for a lot of kids, drawing is just something to do. It's something to kind of keep your little hands busy. Keeps you, you're in grade school, and it's well, little Jimmy, you better start drawing or else you're going to get hooked on the drugs.
Yeah.
But, drawing is just something fun for kids to do, and I think that a percentage of kids decide oh, I like this, I want to keep doing this. And for me, it wasn't really a conscious thing. I wasn't oh, I want to draw, I have to draw. It was more a natural inclination because I wanted to draw the things I liked. I wanted to draw dinosaurs, I wanted to draw Godzilla, I wanted to draw Transformers, I wanted to draw Power Rangers, I wanted to draw what's it called? I found some of my drawings from when I was again, single digits. I found them recently, and I drew a bunch of Sonic the Hedgehog and Cadillacs and dinosaur stuff. Maybe I should post those when this episode drops. Yeah, man. Professionally, I knew I wanted to make a go of it being a career when I was in high school, because I was a big manga fan, and I really loved manga, and I loved the creative process that went into making a comic. And so as a result, I'm playing, I'm reading Japanese comics, and I'm watching Japanese shows, and I'm playing a lot of Japanese video games, and I just got locked onto that creative style and those influences, and then eventually after college, after my my useless ass degree in fine art, I finally managed to start getting regular gigs for comic book work, and then Godzilla happened in late 2010, and the rest is kind of history.
Yeah. I didn't actually know about, like, there had been Godzilla comics for so long until, like, more recently, the past couple of years, and I was like, wait, there's, like, more, they've made more lore to this? Besides, like, you know, the various movies and such?
Oh, yeah, like, it's just one of those franchises where, like, it's inevitable that it's gonna get comics. I mean,
Yeah.
most popular franchises in some form or another, just through marketing, they're just like, we should put out comics. I mean, that especially became popular. I mean, they've been doing that since, like, they've made comics for the original King Kong, like, decades ago. Like, I mean, even before the big boom in the 80s and 90s, when, you know, you started using comics to promote TV shows like G.I. Joe and Transformers. So, yeah, it's just kind of inevitable that they would start making like Godzilla comics. The first ones were, of course, the Marvel Godzilla comics, which are my personal favorites because they have such big ideas and they're so audacious. Yeah, man.
Wait, I'm waiting for you to reveal your. We just saw some friends and I. We just saw. I know it's not proper Godzilla. It's Zilla, but the 1998 movie.
Oh yeah.
we were just having a great time laughing at it. But I was gonna be like,
yeah,
I can't wait until you you make the comic book continuation of the animated series.
I mean, Lord,
maybe one day.
Yeah, I mean, Lord knows I would absolutely jump on that opportunity because I love that animated series. I think it's fantastic. It's just, but it's one of those things that just, man, Toho does not like acknowledging it exists.
No.
And on top of that, I mean, although Godzilla 98 still hits like like whenever Bandai has like a poll about what the fans want to see for another Monster Arts figure, inevitably Godzilla 98 will be pretty high on that list. But
it's a cool design.
Yeah, it's a great design, and it is very nostalgic for a particular subset of fans. I mean, even for me, I was in 98. I would have been in junior high when that movie came out.
Yeah.
And so even then, like, the movie itself is still very nostalgic for me. But I look back at it and I'm also like, it was a pile of crap.
A lot of fish.
Did you? I meant to ask. Can I swear on this show?
It's allowed, but we don't personally do it because we don't want people to not like act like themselves. You know what I mean? To feel too restricted. So whatever. Either way,
okay.
If you want to censor yourself, you can.
Yeah, it's a big pile of poopy. No.
Yeah, that's not a big.
Yeah, no worries.
Either way.
Yeah, no worries. All right.
But yeah, no, we were just watching that recently, and I didn't know how else to bring it up.
No. I mean, it is a piece of pop culture history, and it definitely should not be forgotten because it is sits in such a strange place.
Yes.
And it kind of led to what could be arguably be the death of the classic Hollywood hype machine. Like, they just don't do marketing like that anymore. They don't like have whole buses where they're like, his foot is as long as this bus, his tail is as long as the sign. Like, they don't really do that sort of thing anymore. And Godzilla 98 really was what killed it,
and the Taco Bell promotion.
Oh yeah. Well, I remember back when waiting for the fast food tie-in was one of the things I was excited about for whenever a movie would come out.
Yeah.
Like, I think I still have some of the, oh no, I know what I have. I have the Masked Rider, the Saban's Masked Rider, like, Happy Meal toy or whatever it was. I don't even know if it was a Happy Meal. I think it was like, I think that was Taco Bell, maybe? Or was it Burger King?
I'm surprised it got toys at all.
Yeah, it did. It's honestly, it's one of my favorites because it's a little, it's Magno, it's the red car, and you pop it open, and inside of it is a little Masked Rider on Chopper. And it rolls around because it has working wheels. And I don't know, something about that. It's very nostalgic for me. I think I found one at Power Morphicon, and I was like, oh, I used to have this. I'm totally buying this. How much? And it's like, I think he wanted like $50 for it or something. I whittled him down. But anyway.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. So getting into like kind of your I wanted to get into, and we already like obviously talked about it a little bit, but just your experience with tokusatsu as a genre. Like I know you said on your like Reddit AMA that like you kind of started with some like Ultraman stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day. I just wanted to just have you elaborate a little bit on just like your tokusatsu viewing experience throughout your life, and no worries. I mean like it is with a lot of folks, it really started with Godzilla, or like the idea of Godzilla was floated to me at a certain point because it's the most easily available. And because, like I said, I was a big fan of dinosaurs, and inevitably someone starts showing you or giving you Godzilla stuff. And if I remember correctly, there was a a birthday card someone gave me that had Godzilla on it. And I'm pretty sure it was not licensed, but whatever. And I remember I heard someone say, or someone told me, I think it was my parents, they were like, oh, that's Godzilla. And I'm like, what's a Godzilla? And eventually I started, like, through pop culture osmosis, kind of learning more and more about what Godzilla was. And then eventually started finally getting a hold of the movies. In particular, I remember it was spread out over a couple of different incidents. Like, I'm trying to remember. There was a monster movie marathon. I was like on TNT or something. Right.
Yeah, and not necessarily Monster Vision, but it was like I think it was because it was Super Bowl weekend and they were making like a Monster Bowl or something like that. And it was Tentacles. This is the lineup: Tentacles, Critters, Frogs, and Godzilla 1985. I think there was one or two others. Empire of the Ants. That was another one. And just so you have like a Jaws ripoff, a Gremlins ripoff, a Them ripoff, and then Godzilla. It's like, and I remember I was so excited to see Godzilla that I stayed up. Like, it was the latest I think I'd ever stayed up. And I finally got to Godzilla, and I was so excited that I don't even think I watched much of the movie. I just took my like foot tall Imperial Godzilla and like was stomping around on the Hot Wheels cars I had and knocking over blocks and stuff. And I would occasionally look up, see Godzilla stomping around, and that image is like burned into my brain. And then it wasn't until, I started actually getting VHS tapes like Godzilla vs. the Sea Monster that I really started locking in on it. And then that all sort of ties into when Power Rangers started coming out, which really kind of blew the door open. And then just growing up in the 90s and early 2000s as an American kid, you're just constantly exposed to Japanese media because that was the cheap stuff to import at the time for all the distributors in the States. So yeah, man, I would say that's definitely the genesis of Matt as a kaiju fan, as a tokusatsu fan specifically, because then you get a hold of the internet, and the internet opens up more doors for you, and
fan subs and such.
Yeah, exactly. Like I remembered when I first started buying bootleg fan subs off of folks that I would like pen pals I would get after I wrote a letter to the Gamera Dark Horse comic, and they printed my letter in the letters column, and then I got some pen pals who were like, hey, I heard you were looking for those them there Gamera movies. So yeah, that was definitely a big part of it all, was just like the internet and all the fan subs and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think I definitely started with Power Rangers, because I was about like, when it came out, I had like just been born when it started running. And so I was watching reruns when I was like 4 and 5.
Oh yeah. I was going to say, yeah, that would have been about 92, 93.
Yeah, I was born in 93, so yeah.
Jeez, I'm almost 10 years older than you. Oh, boy.
I didn't come out of the womb, like, doing flips and being a Power Ranger or anything like that.
Well, I mean, I remember that the Power Rangers thing sort of happened somewhat simultaneously with the with what I had perceived as sort of a rise in interest in America in karate and kickboxing and stuff.
Right.
And
like Karate Kid and stuff.
Yeah. Well, Karate Kid was definitely more of an 80s
earlier
thing, but still, it was this growing industry, and I was taking karate at the time. And I remembered not really liking it, though, because so much of it was just kind of, they would make the kids brawl each other, and we wouldn't really do any of the moves. We would just kind of slap each other with our big foam pads. And I wanted to fight like the Power Rangers and do kickflips. And much to my sensei's chagrin. But yeah.
So clearly you've with so you started with Godzilla, you got into Ultraman at like a little later, right?
Yeah.
And so like that kind of answers my other question, like if you were a fan of other like tokusatsu stuff, like, and you've kind of already answered this because you already mentioned like Power Rangers and Masked Rider and
well, Ultraman specifically, I became a fan of very indirectly, because I remember seeing toy commercials for Ultraman Towards the Future, and my grandma would then would find those toys for me, and I still have I still have at least 2 of them that I've had since I was a kid, and then I've been collecting some of the others as I've gotten older. And those toys are really fun. I think I still have I don't know where that is. But I remember seeing the commercial and being like, oh my god, it's a kaiju-sized superhero. It's a Godzilla-sized superhero. And that concept had never even occurred to me, because, for me, heroes were always human-sized. They were guys like Batman and Superman and Power Rangers and stuff. And the biggest somebody would get is, like, the Power Rangers would get inside of a robot.
Right.
So to see, like, a superhero who would just grow gigantic and just punch a monster in the face, that was really cool. But I never got to see Towards the Future while it was airing. It was only... I do actually remember seeing the credits for an episode while channel surfing, and I thought they were the end credits. And so I thought, oh, I guess it's over. And then I switched over the channel. Only later did I realize, like, oh no, those are the opening credits. I could have tuned in.
Oops.
Oops-a-doodle. Yeah. Eventually, though... TNT started airing Ultra 7 at like 4 in the morning. And and I would also like occasionally I would get bootlegs of random Ultraman episodes that would be paired with like other kaiju movies and like Varan the Unbelievable or Godzilla versus Space Godzilla. And so I would sort of have this drip feed of Ultraman stuff, and then so like again, Ultraman was so hard to find in the States.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know, just it was a whole thing.
Yeah, like I wouldn't have known about Ultraman earlier in life if it wasn't for the short-lived 4Kids dub of Ultraman Tiga.
Yeah. I was so hyped for that. Like,
it was not good.
It wasn't good.
I mean, the dub itself. The Tiga's fine.
Well, yeah, no.
I haven't seen enough of like actual Tiga.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, Tiga. I think I had seen like let me think for a second. I had only seen like part of the first episode of Tiga, that first battle. And then I had read a lot about Tiga on some various websites. I had seen them all on, like I said, on various websites and stuff. I had read synopses, and I had seen what some of the monsters looked like. I'd read about them in G-Fan magazine, and so when Tiga was announced, I was like, oh my god. So I was very aware of the fact that like we had been starved of Ultraman in the States. There was this giant backlog, and this was like a huge opportunity for Ultraman to get some Western exposure. And of course later it was taken off air, but then I found out I am very fortunate to be friends with a guy named Brad Warner. I don't know if you know who that is.
Brad.
I
probably should.
Well, no, it's a little bit of a deep cut. Brad Brad was in the early 2000s the only gaijin working at Tsuburaya Productions. He was their the only like white dude.
The only foreigner,
the only white dude working for Tsuburaya. And he had a lot of great anecdotes about his time working there, like how sometimes stuff would get lost or stuff would go missing. I shouldn't probably speak too much out of school because I have a current working relationship with Tsuburaya. But Tsuburaya in the 90s was also a very different, in the 90s and early 2000s was also a very different animal.
Yes.
But he said that he was, I believe, he was very present for when they were adapting Tiga. And he said that apparently the show got pretty good ratings. It actually got like 2 million viewers a week, which is pretty good, but it's not Fox good. Like Fox is very notorious for just completely pulling the plug on stuff if they know they can replace it with something else.
It wasn't Power Rangers good.
Yeah, it wasn't Power, and even by that point, I don't even think Power Rangers was on.
It was. I think it was on a different. I think that's when Disney got a hold of it at that point.
Yeah, it was on Disney, and so it was on like ABC Family or something.
Yeah, yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
So also like just what are your favorite, this is like a total switch
it's okay
question, but it still has to do with everything. So like your favorite characters to draw, like, and this is like a multi-part question. So favorite Godzilla kaiju, favorite Ultraman, like favorite Ultraman, and then favorite Ultra kaiju, and just like characters to draw. Like, what are some of your favorite ones to draw or like do stories with, or just whatever, like specific characters that you just really like getting the chance to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I get a kick out of just about anything I'll get to draw. I obviously love drawing kaiju. You know, kaiju are the most fun because they're Excuse me. Oh, it's been a long day. Kaiju are the most fun because they're very, they're kaiju. Kaiju are just wacky. They're wacky. They're entertaining. They have all these fun details to them. I would say that some of my favorite specific characters I get to draw are... I always love drawing Godzilla. Godzilla's always a hoot. I love to draw... I really enjoyed drawing Gamera and all the weird Gamera monsters for the Arrow box set. By comparison, Ultraman himself, if I can get some cool poses out of him, he's a lot of fun to draw. But if I'm just drawing like his face or a close-up of him, Ultraman can be a little challenging because they have such clean, simple lines.
Right.
That it becomes really... it's very noticeable if you screw up. Like if you don't get a detail right or if you miss something... or if you get the eyes the wrong shape, everything is so carefully balanced on their designs that if you mess something up, it's really obvious. Like it just like it'll ruin the drawing. So as a result, Ultraman are actually very challenging. Yeah, especially some of the more recent ones because they have so many swoopy lines on them and interconnecting lines, and the current artist doing the Ultra designs, I think he's Goto-san. I can't remember the artist's name. I think I follow him on Instagram. He's really he's an amazing artist and he's really good at what he does, but he really likes to work in these little tiny intricate designs, and they're not over designed, they're just, there's a lot to keep track of. But I do like them. It's just, but kind of getting them down and keeping them consistent is usually a little bit challenging. Yeah. Other than that, I mean, I really like drawing beasts and monsters and kaiju because you get their faces to do fun things and you can squeeze a lot of a personality out of them. Old people are also fun to draw. Like I'm actually, as we speak, I'm drawing an old person. I'm drawing. It's a little,
not a giant old person.
Not a giant old person, just a regular old person. Well, I'm working on an original comic called Miss Medusa's Monstrous Menagerie, and it's an original comic series. It's going to be a little more adult targeted. And there's just this old racist grandma that I get to draw, and she's just so much fun because she's so gnarled and so she just looks like she'd be a pain in the ass at Thanksgiving. And as a result, it's just sometimes those kind of characters, those characters you get to draw a lot of personality out of them, and you get to give them these big personalities. She's being racist towards Fae folk, which is probably not the smart move, but no, that's how you get your kids kidnapped. Or is that a spoiler? Ooh.
That sounds like an interesting.
It's gonna be a weird comic.
Concept?
I'm very excited for the comic, but I don't want to give too much away, and I don't want to.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, keep an eye open for that. We're hopefully going to do a Kickstarter or something for it. But that's through the good people at Unlikely Heroes Studios.
I mean, that was already announced, right? I mean, not the Kickstarter, but like the comic itself.
Yeah, there was a preview of it that came out.
Oh, okay. Just wanted to make sure.
No, thank you for asking. It was. Hold on, I've got the comics right here. It was Elseworlds. Elseworlds Volume 2 is this anthology book of different creators all getting together and writing short stories, and ours was sort of a vertical slice of Miss Medusa, and it was more of a dialogue scene between some of our major characters, and it's a very it actually wound up being a lot of people's favorite sequence, even though it's really just two characters having a conversation.
Right.
And so I love stuff like that. I which is one of the reasons why I liked the new Masters of the Universe.
I still need to finish it, but yeah, it's
It's
very interesting.
I know it's not for everyone. I recognize that. I just I personally really like it because it's both like it's the kind of stuff I like seeing in an adaptation.
Yeah.
Because they took the original setup for the show, and then they took it in directions that the original show never could go in, because they had to have a formula and they had to stick to certain tropes. So they kind of made, like, I guess you could say, like an extended animated film sequel. Which that's why I like it. And I also have enjoyed a lot of the way Smith writes dialogue. I'm not the biggest fan of a lot of his films, but I think he's always had good dialogue chops. So, yeah, that's just me.
Speaking of, like, reboots and stuff, do you have, like... So when you're, like, designing or redesigning kaiju and Ultraman and stuff, obviously for some stuff you kind of have to go by some certain guidelines. But, like, I noticed you did a redesign of Gorosaurus, and that was one when some of my friends, we were watching, what was it? I think it was Destroy All Monsters, because I think that's one of the ones. We were like, this dude is just a dinosaur.
Oh yeah.
and then I like was trying to look up redesigns, and I saw yours, and I was like, what do you guys think of this one? And they're like, that's a lot better. Because like the one you did was more like Raptor / T-Rex. That it was more unique. It didn't just look like just a generic dinosaur.
Well, do you know the story behind Gorosaurus?
I think I probably looked it up before, but I don't remember.
No, the top of your head.
Exactly
I mean, it's all right. I short version. I was gonna say it's all right. I'm gonna tell you. Well, the short version is simply So yeah, I mean, Gorosaurus is from King Kong Escapes, and really he was just a stand-in for like a T-Rex. And because they wanted to, they wanted to have a classic style King Kong fights a T-Rex moment in this show, because that's become like a trope of Kong media. We want Kong to fight. We want Kong to fight. We want Kong to fight a dinosaur, and we want him to break its jaw and stuff. It's like in the whole movie, and that's why they did it. And that's all Gorosaurus is in that movie. He's just a dinosaur that briefly menaces the female lead, and then Kong saves her. But when it came around to making Destroy All Monsters, they were going through all the suits they had in storage. And a lot of the suits they had to make a couple of new monster suits, but a few others were still like in pretty decent shape.
Right.
Like they refurbished the Rodan suit. They built a new Godzilla suit and a new Anguirus suit. They spruced up one of the Mothra props. They still had Kumanga and King Ghidorah and all that. But then they saw Gorosaurus, and they were basically like, this suit's in pretty good shape. I mean, we just recently used it, and it's in good shape, and it's a great-looking creature. Let's just throw it in, just so we can have another body, like another monster.
Yeah.
And so you have just this random giant-sized dinosaur hanging out with Godzilla and stuff, and I love the audacity of that, of just the don't worry about it kind of mood there, because it's like, who cares? Yeah, sure, it's a giant dinosaur, and that's what kind of makes it fun, is that the dinosaur is so, it's just so big for no reason, and it makes you wonder, like, what happened.
Yeah. But like getting into my question before I mentioned Gorosaurus is like, so when you're like designing or like kind of redesigning stuff, do you have like, I guess it could depend on the character, but do you have like a certain look in mind? Do you have some kind of philosophy when you're doing that, just so you want to stay true to the character, but like you still want to make it kind of your own interpretation as well? Just anything like that? Do you have like any process like that when, redesigning or designing kaiju or Ultraman and such?
Whenever I redesign a character, especially nowadays, I mean, it's definitely, well, I guess it sort of holds true back in the day as well. I really do like trying to push boundaries and trying something new, especially if it's just something for fun. Like if I'm just doing something just for the heck of it, like Godzilla Neo, or I'm doing some monster redesigns with my friend Sophie Campbell, who's she's another comic book artist, and she's really awesome at what she does. She, I believe, is the current artist on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. She and I really try to think outside of the box with certain stuff, or try to pick a direction and run with it. Like when we did Gauss redesigns for Halloween last year. Her design went a little more cartoonish, but she leaned into the idea of Gauss being very vampire-like, almost to where the Gauss's wings would wrap around it like a cloak. And just very like Nosferatu-esque, with a little bit of Morticia Addams on top of that, stylistically. Like, it's just a very it's very fun and bouncy and cartoony and creative. And whereas with me, I went for more of like a Shin Gauss, like a Shin Godzilla, Shin Gauss, where I try to think of Gauss as a living organic creature, and how you could keep all the cool aspects of Gauss without sacrificing them because they aren't realistic. So, like for example, the original Gauss was bioluminescent, so I thought to work that angle in a little more pervasively throughout the design. And okay, well, the Gauss has like a sonic scream. Well, not unlike Shin Godzilla, Gauss's jaw splits open, but I thought it'd be cooler if Gauss's entire head split open and formed like a sonic cannon. Yeah, so, and it's, then I did a Godzilla redesign that I was actually surprised a lot of people really enjoyed, because I kind of made it like this ancient cetacean creature, like really literalized the gorilla whale angle, and had this giant, I figured it would be this giant sort of prehistoric cetacean that back when the ancestors of whales and dolphins were still only semi-aquatic, right? Except it has this like radioactive coral parasite growing on its body that it uses to charge up atomic breath and stuff. So just kind of going nuts with stuff, and I think that it's best to see as far as you can take a design, and then maybe work backwards from that. Like, okay, this is a little too crazy, because that's the thing, is like, none of the stuff is real. So it's really just a limit of like what you think you can get away with. And also, it's a question of what you think makes the character work. Because, right. I mean, like, the character of Godzilla has been interpreted and reinterpreted so many times that I really do think that the 1998 design could have worked. And we even saw it in the 1998 movie. Not the movie, the animated series. That, it actually can work as a Godzilla. It's just not, it's just, but when your movie sucks, it doesn't matter, because your movie sucks, and now nobody's going to be down with your redesign. I mean, and the thing is like, no matter what you change about a character's design, if you change anything about it, you're going to lose a certain number of your audience.
Somebody's not going to like it.
No, you're not. Yeah. It's literally impossible to please everyone. And as a result, I just think, like, so why try? Why not just why not just have fun with it and try something new? And if people don't respond to it, or not enough people respond to it, well, inevitably another one's going to come along and do something different.
Like, so have you had to work sometimes with like kind of guidelines, like doing designs, like, okay, well, you can't really do this and you can't do that, but otherwise, or is it most of the time are you kind of free to do, like, as long as it's clearly based on whatever the original thing is, it's kind of okay. It may depend on the property, I'm sure.
It's really dependent on the property. Like, for example, with Toho, chances are if you're working on a Godzilla project with them, you're going to need to stick to a number of guidelines because they're very protective of their IP. And this is mostly because their IP has been brazenly disrespected for a really long time. Right. So they have to maintain that Godzilla baseline, that Godzilla polish, or the Godzilla party line, I guess you could call it. But then with other stuff, like, with Gamera, they're not really that concerned about it. Like, it's not, I mean, obviously, if you draw something that's not a giant turtle, they're going to take issue with it. But generally, I just remember with The Last Hope, the Gamera comic I did, that comic, specifically, I didn't get any notes on. It was just this fully formed thing because it was just supposed to be a fan project, and I did all these different designs for different Gameras in the comic, and I did like my own design for Gorosaurus and stuff, and I didn't get any notes on it. Like, Kadokawa never wrote and said like, oh, change this, change that. And that's because, it just isn't that kind of IP. At least that's from my experience. And then with Ultraman, they generally would prefer that you stick to the character models, but if you're going to try something new or even make a new character, they don't really mind. Like, when I worked on Redman, I went ahead and made, like, I wanted to make, like, the Redman version of Garamon, but I also wanted them to be, like, herd animals that were fodder to be eaten. And I thought that would be kind of number one, that wouldn't really make sense for Garamon. And number two, that'd be really sad if it were Pigmon. I think a lot of Ultra fans would have turned on me.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So instead, I made a completely new version and called it Redmon, and just based it on that friggin' wackadoo Garamon suit they had in the original Redman show. And Tsuburaya was like, cool, go for it. So it really does depend on the property, and some properties are more forgiving than others. It also just depends on the project. Like, are you actively, if you came in with the active intention of redesigning a character, then that's a whole other ball game.
Yeah.
Like Attack Peter just, Amondo's coming out with that Attack Peter Godzilla statue, although I'm pretty sure it's sold out by now, which is to say it's sold out within 4.5 minutes of it being put up for sale.
Yeah.
But that Attack Peter Godzilla, that is probably considered its own unique design now, and probably had to go through an entire design process.
Yeah.
I did design what was briefly referred to as the Frank Godzilla for the IDW comics. And it was only in it was only at the end of Godzilla Legends issue 1, and it's on the cover of Rulers of Earth issue 1, and I think Rulers of Earth issue 2, and it's a kind of a mix of a couple of different Godzillas. It's really just kind of a hodgepodge. It's like a little bit of GMK, a little bit of Kiryu, Goji, and stuff like that there. But I remembered I didn't get any notes on it because it was only used for those like 2 or 3 pages in Godzilla Legends. But then I wanted to use it in Rulers of Earth, and Toho wrote back and they said like, oh, we like that design, but for the sake of our approval process, we would really rather you use a pre-existing design. because it's just going to make things easier. And I said, oh, okay. No worries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what? I think I meant to ask this earlier, but I think it works now too. So which Godzilla design from like that you didn't do would be is one of your favorites? Is your favorite?
That's really hard to say because I like a lot of them for different reasons. I would say that it's sort of a dead heat between Godzilla 2000 and GMK Godzilla, and if I'm feeling saucy, which is 1964 Mosogoji, because the Mosogoji design is very elegant. I think it's very it has a really good vibe to it. I really love the look of it, and then Godzilla 2000 is just such is a actively beautiful design, I think, because especially the initial version, which was designed by Shinji Nishikawa and Yuji Sakai. That's the version that became the Monster Arts figure. That version of the character is just absolutely gorgeous. That might be my number one favorite. But then GMK is my favorite Godzilla movie, so as a result, it's one of my favorite Godzilla suits.
Yeah. I think I prefer the Heisei Godzilla myself.
Yeah, I
don't know why. I just like the teeth.
Well, it is a good design.
How it like snarls.
It's a good design. It's got a lot of personality, and it's very handsome and very and kind of heroic looking. Like you can really get behind that, the idea of that Godzilla being a kind of a reluctant defender of Earth.
Yeah, like an anti-hero.
Very anti-hero, but I'm personally a little burned out on it.
Understandable.
That's not to say I'm not gonna keep drawing him, but it's more like I keep seeing products and stuff with the Heisei Godzilla on them, and I'm just like, oh man, can we give the other Godzillas some love? Like,
yeah.
How about Final Wars Godzilla, huh? Like,
yeah.
Anyway.
So we're gonna get back to tokusatsu at the end here, but we're gonna kind of talk a little more about like kind of just being an artist and such. So like, are there some like unique challenges, kind of unique to you, that you faced in your career? And you don't have to get like super personal about it or anything. It's just like in general type of thing.
Well, I mean, all artists already wrestle with the idea that of imposter syndrome and whether or not they deserve the success they get or deserve to be recognized for their work, because you're always sitting there second guessing your work and thinking like, is this really as good as people say it is, or am I just, or they just blowing smoke up my ass, or whatever. It's just it just kind of depends on how you're feeling that month. Because a lot of artists are also struggle with, because a lot of us are sensitive weirdos. We struggle with anxiety, or we struggle with depression and stuff. I myself struggle with anxiety and ADHD, as indicated by this entire episode. And but there's ways around that, and there's ways to mitigate that. The current challenge I'm really struggling with is scheduling and time. Because I am like working on 3 different comic books simultaneously, and I'm working on some promotional stuff for a couple of other projects. Because like, this is I'm sure a problem a lot of artists are dealing with right now. When COVID hit and the pandemic started, everybody like everything was on hold. Like a lot of people got fired from stuff, or couldn't go to cons anymore, or just across the board. And I know a lot of artists who were really struggling, like their projects would just get canceled or out from under them, and it was really kind of heartbreaking to see a lot of my friends struggling. And at about the same time, a lot of my projects got put on hold. Thankfully, I was able to pivot to some other stuff. And then so I started signing on with all these other projects. And then once the pandemic started like shifting and it was like, okay, now the vaccine's out and now stuff's starting up again. Now all those other projects are starting up and they're trying to make up for lost time. So I'm like, oh Christ.
Oh no. Yeah.
Now everything's happening at once. So, and I know more than a few artists who have had just complete creator burnout. So as a Uncle Matt, if any aspiring young artists are listening, listen to Uncle Matt. Don't burn yourself out. Take time for yourself. Take time for projects that you want to do that'll make you happy. And, try to have breaks, and don't be afraid to ask for extensions if you can get them. Like if you truly feel like you're not enjoying something and you're just getting burnt out, don't be afraid to be like, hey, I'm on the verge of getting burned out here. Is there anything we can do to give me an extension or something? Obviously, try to always make your deadlines because your deadlines are very important, and it's important to be professional. It's important to be courteous to because your employers are the ones who are, they're paying you. So that's the biggest struggle I'm having right now is just like, man, just trying to make time to work and sleep and eat.
Right. Mm-hmm. Trying to balance everything.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah. My poor assistant, she's losing sleep over me not getting enough sleep. So, I don't envy having to manage an artist.
Yeah. So, kind of continuing off of that, like, what's something? This is actually from a question from my co-host Jason. Mm-hmm. He says he's a huge comic book fan. Mm-hmm. And he says, "What do you wish consumers and fans knew more about in order to appreciate the work that artists do?"
That is an excellent point. That is actually a really good question. I get kudos to Jason for that one.
That's why I asked him. I knew he'd have something good.
Yeah. I would say that the one of the most important things when it comes to that like, first of all, just across the board, cut your favorite comic creators a little slack, because a lot of us are overworked and underpaid, and we get to do what we love for a living, but that old axiom of do what you want to do what you love doing, you'll never work a day in your life, that's horseshit. You will never.
I mean, it's still a job.
You will never. Well, it's not just a job. You will never work harder on anything in your life than the thing you love doing, because you want to do well at it. You want to do good at it. You want to be good at it, and you want it to be as best as it can be. And when you have a job like mine, where you're not just an artist, you're also a writer and a creative person, you're like involved in the creative side of things. I'm having to write scripts for another comic right now, and it's a challenge. I'm working on the Eisenberg comic adaptation for Subaraya through Phase 6, and we're planning on bringing that out later this year. I have to basically watch the old show, which is very hard to find subtitled, and I have to like adapt it for a comic book format, and at the same time try to find a way to put my own spin on it. Like Redman was comparatively easy because I kind of had a blank slate to work with, but with Eisenberg there's all these little details you have to be aware of. So what I would say to answer Jason's question is there are so many moving parts to what happens behind the scenes. Chances are, if something happens that you don't agree with, there was probably like 9 different reasons why it happened. Like, oh, you don't like that they recast this role, or a new, like the people who are complaining and gnashing their teeth over Captain America being like basically Falcon becoming Captain America. All I have to say to those people is, well, first of all, you've never read the comics, and secondly, you got to think about how, like, Chris Evans probably was fine. He was probably ready to walk away from the role. He probably felt like he had done all he could with the role and was ready to move on. He's not your... Oh, that's another thing. Just as far as creative people go and people who are working in the media industry and who work in creative fields like this, they are also people. And they want to do things, and you may not agree with that thing, but they're already trying to do something that makes them happy and makes you happy because you're the audience. But that doesn't mean you get to, like, sit there and shake your fist at them and dictate how they do their job. It's just, I sometimes see people really get abusive especially towards comic creators and people in the industry. And I just feel like it just feels very ugly, and it's hard to articulate because, you want to make your audience happy. We all do, but it's, if you're don't agree with something, that's fine. Tell us you don't agree with it, and just don't buy the book, like, you don't have to, like, come after us and yell at us on Twitter.
Yeah, you can have, like, an actual discussion about it instead of just being like,
or just calling somebody ugly names and stuff. It's like, there's a civil conversation to be had about almost any subject. But also one more thing. One more thing.
Yeah, no worries. No,
especially online, it's really hard sometimes for creators to parse out the good comments from the bad comments. Like, it just kind of becomes one giant noise machine after a while. Because, I mean, you can't imagine what it feels like, what it does to a person psychologically, to have 1,000 people all talking to them at once. And you have to sit there and try to parse out the good faith from the bad faith. Because it's one thing when somebody is physically yelling at you and you can tell the difference between, okay, this person is unhinged and emotionally unstable and they're just using me as an emotional punching bag, versus somebody who's just trying to have a calm and measured conversation with a creative decision they didn't agree with.
Right.
It's easy to do that in person, but online and over text, it's almost impossible. So, in general, just cut your creators some slack. They're doing their best. So, hopefully I won't get 500 hate messages on Twitter for that. I don't think I will. Generally, a lot of the people I interact with online have been pretty chill.
Yeah, that's just the way of the internet. Sometimes you just get those people that... Yeah.
It's a person who... It's generally people who are like, oh, you're probably unmedicated. And you are... currently, or it's especially funny when those people, like, have kids and you're just like, shouldn't you be with your kids right now? Like, why don't you go show your kids your favorite comics instead of yelling at me on Twitter?
Right.
Anyway, like I said, the vast majority of the people I interact with online are super cool and super chill. So, there now and then.
Yeah. So going off of that, this is something I always like to ask with people in, like, creative fields, because I know I have friends that are artists who, their career is kind of up and down, and especially with the pandemic and stuff, like you said. So what's, like, the best advice if you could give one piece of advice for, like, struggling artists and or those looking to join the comic industry, what would it be? Like, the one, like, key piece of advice. My
semi-joke answer is, industry's full. But no, I'm just go to something else. No, I'm really kidding. I never want to. I have a friend who I haven't talked to in a while, but he used to say that. He used to be like, my piece of advice I always give young artists is, industry's full. Do something else. And it's not because. Trying to, like, it's mine, it's mine, and no one else's. It's more like, do you really want to go down this path? You better be prepared, because it's a hard industry. It's hard, and artists are unfortunately usually some of the first to go, because when there's like downsizing and stuff, because a lot of artists are, unfortunately, in a lot of the industry, are kind of seen as disposable or interchangeable. And it's unfortunate. Again, I'm very fortunate that I am very, very fortunate that a lot of the clients I've had and I work with have again been very cool about it and have been very much like, no, you're our guy and we want to work with you. And I'm like, oh, that's very sweet. And then I've had other companies I've worked with that have been a little more of the like, okay, you're done, moving on. And I get it from the industry perspective, like it's tough because you're trying to keep things fresh, you want to cycle your artists out and bring in new artists, find fresh talent. That's all totally understandable. But just be prepared for that. If you're a young artist trying to get in this industry, be prepared for it just to be very tough. But if you truly love it, you will hunker down, dig your heels in, and do the work. I think comedian Patton Oswalt put it best when he said, appreciate the struggle like it's going to make you a better artist. Like, appreciate... because you'll look back on it and you'll think like, well, that sucked, but it made me the artist that I am, and it made me improve. Because like I look back on some of my old stuff, like I'm talking like stuff from 2008, 2009, and things like that, and I think like, oh, if I ran a comic business, I would never hire this guy, or I certainly wouldn't hire him now. And it's just because like it's because I look, and that's because we're ours are our own worst critics. We look back on our old stuff and we're just like, gah. But thankfully, I've been very fortunate in my field to do the what's Neil Gaiman's 3 rules of freelancing. I think that's the best advice I could give. Is I know I'm jumping all over the place, but
no worries.
Yeah, again,
I've been doing that too.
Severe ADHD. The 3 rules of freelancing are turn your work on time, do quality work, do the best work you can, and be nice, just be pleasant, be professional. And you don't even need all 3. People will forgive the lateness of your work if it's on time, if it's high quality work, and it's always a pleasure to hear from you. That saved my ass a few times while working at IDW. Or you can have really high quality work and always turn your work on time, and if you're kind of a dick, people will tolerate it. Not that that's recommended. And then of course, the last one is your work doesn't even need to be all that good if you're always on time and you're always nice. So then that saved my ass more than a few times as well. So yeah, that's the advice, kids. Write it down. There will be a quiz on Thursday.
So our last thing is definitely more relevant to the specific stuff you've been doing art for.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of like, there's obviously been like a rise of like, at least at like kind of, I don't know about popularity, but there's definitely been a rise in more accessible tokusatsu stuff,
mm-hmm.
Like both in terms of comics and just other media, because we have the Godzilla and Ultraman comics that you do. We have some other the Power Rangers Boom Studios comics,
mm-hmm.
Some upcoming stuff that's actually very like I think the new Darkhawk they said is actually very tokusatsu influenced.
Oh, a new Darkhawk. First of all, a new Darkhawk, and secondly, a tokusatsu style Darkhawk. That sounds awesome. I got to look into that.
Yeah, so there was that. There's like a couple of smaller, not like indie comics that are on Kickstarter that are like,
oh yeah,
tokusatsu based, and then we're also getting like we're getting all the stuff through Shout Factory, like all those Ultraman shows and movies, and some Kamen Rider stuff, and not really Sentai, unfortunately, but
yeah, it kind of dried up, didn't it?
But we're getting we're getting so much of this stuff, and I just wanted to just wanted to like ask you about kind of your thoughts on that, and why maybe like their popularity is just the worldwide appeal has kind of just seemed to increase a lot more recently. Like I've seen a lot more people than I would expect getting into Ultraman and Kamen Rider and Godzilla.
Yeah. No, I think that's a fascinating subject. I don't. I probably could talk for hours about it, but we both have stuff to do. We both have lives. Yeah. I think that's a fascinating. I mean, I literally just got in the mail today the Daimajin set that I worked on for Arrow Video, and first of all, I gotta say I am extremely proud of this set. It's a beautiful set. If you can get a hold of it, I definitely recommend it because it's just like.
Did it sell out super fast?
I think it's sold out in some places. I don't know if Amazon is still taking orders or not. But if you can get a hold of it, try to get a hold of it. It
looks like they are. It's about because you can pre-order it.
Well, Amazon, it got delayed. I know that.
Okay.
But I saw
about $100.
Yeah, I mean it's worth it. It's worth it.
Yeah,
like,
I don't know if that's like the standard or if that's I'm just saying that's just what the price is.
It's 3 remastered movies and like just a giant ton of special features and like all these other goodies and the book and everything. I can't recommend it more highly personally, but it just as a fan. But seeing stuff like that, or seeing this giant box set of Gamera. That's like a definitive American box set release, or the Godzilla movies are more easily accessible than they ever have been, and just the fact that we are literally getting almost, if not every single Ultraman series on DVD or Blu-ray is astonishing to me.
And like a bunch of them on streaming too.
Yeah, and on streaming. Oh well, really, it's the Blu-ray that gets me. It's the fact that they're going ahead and doing physical releases.
We're finally getting physical stuff again. Yeah.
Yeah, like I can't. I'm just like, I didn't think I'd see the day because again, I grew up in the '90s and the 2000s when, they tried to do a big push for Ultraman Tiga, and it just kind of fell flat. And every time they would try to do some new Ultraman thing, it would just. People just didn't really care. And I think it's a combination of the fact that, number one, you have you have Godzilla kind of come back, and it's there. The movies are popular, or at least popular enough to move a lot of merchandise.
Yeah.
And because that's really where the money is. And they're taking advantage of the fact that online culture is so pervasive now, and you can reach audiences that you normally wouldn't be able to reach. It's easier to find your niche audiences now. And that is something that, the Godzilla franchise has definitely taken advantage of. And when you have something suddenly have a much higher profile through a modern interpretation of it, because I don't particularly... I mean, it's fine. I'm just not the biggest fan of the Netflix Ultraman anime they have. I like that one.
What's that? But I like that one. It's different, but I thought it was all right.
No, I appreciate what they're trying to do. It's just when I look for Ultraman stuff, that's not quite what I look for. That's not really the vibe I'm looking for.
Right.
But I mean, it's fine, and I like a lot of the stuff about it. It's just a little too anime for me when I can get my anime vibe watching other anime. But anyway, but it did bring in a lot of new fans, and a lot of other people were like, oh yeah, I saw that Netflix show, and it made me want to watch classic Ultraman. Or you've got like the new Ultraman pinball machine that I worked on that that there were so many pinball enthusiasts who were like, I have no idea what this is. I tried to go watch the old show. I don't like it. It's weird and goofy and cheesy, but this pinball machine looks awesome and I'm totally buying it. So, you know, so now with the age of the internet and of course the ubiquity of all these people like me who and like both of us who grew up with Japanese culture, we're now finally able to reach these audiences that, you know, and I think another factor, something that can't be overstated, is the tokusatsu genre is inherently very earnest. It's just not a very cynical or self-aware genre.
Right.
It's very much like it kind of wears its influences on its sleeve, and it's very earnest. And it's very much like this is what it is. It's a guy in a suit, and they're fighting in miniatures, and it's all very melodramatic, and it is what it is, and that is very antithetical to a lot of the way Americans consume media. Like, we really like it when our stuff is very cynical or very self-aware or overly serious. I mean, even the Marvel movies are always kind of winking at the audience and kind of like making these little quips and little jokes and stuff. And
I always say I always say to some of my friends who are like into the superhero stuff, I'm like, you guys, you know, modern superhero movies and shows are just they're Western tokusatsu. Y'all aren't ready for that conversation yet.
Oh yeah, dude. Trust me, I have had. And I mean, you know, anime has its own baggage that it comes with.
Not that it's a bad thing, but I'm just like, it's just a funny thing I like saying.
No, of course. It's like I mean, it's just so funny to consider that, like, I think a really good example of the barrier to entry that tokusatsu has had in the United States is the whole story of the problems that Stan Lee was trying to do. Stan Lee was, you know, he was trying to bring tokusatsu to the United States back in the 70s. And, you know, with the whole Spider-Man, he loved the whole Spider-Man, and he wanted to adapt some of the other Sentai shows. And he and, I forget her name, but she was the producer who was, like, partnered with him on it. They were getting laughed out of meetings and stuff because all of the higher ups were like, this is stupid, this is violent, this is, you know.
Yeah, I remember that from the what is it, the first episode of that Disney documentary series, Earth 616.
That
episode about Spider-Man.
Toy Galaxy and Toys That Made Us both did episodes about those subjects, and they were pretty good. They laid a lot of that out, and it's just fascinating to consider that for a long time, the people holding the keys to the kingdom, the people, the gatekeepers, so to speak, were very dismissive of this stuff because they had no sense of suspension of disbelief the way kids do. Like, you know, there's an episode of Toy Galaxy where they talk about Sun Vulcan, and it's probably my favorite episode of their show because they the main host of the show talked about how, you know, nobody wanted to adapt Sun Vulcan, even though Stan Lee and the other producers were like, this is great, kids will love this, it's really fun. And all these producers were like, no, it's cheesy and it's stupid and it's unrealistic. And it's one of the reasons why you didn't see a whole lot of live action superhero stuff. And the live action superhero stuff that was made was all kind of crappy in the 60s and 70s, with the exception of maybe Lou Ferrigno's Incredible Hulk. Or or if you have like something like the Donner Superman, where you have like just a giant boatload of money. And outside of that, if there's no suspension of disbelief and if you didn't grow up with this stuff, it's just hard to get people into it. And in order to distribute it in the United States, you had to get past these gatekeepers who all thought it was crappy to begin with because none of them grew up with it. So now we have these generations of people who have grown up with it, either through the internet or through bootlegs or through watching Power Rangers, and the market is ripe for it. It's like, it's all kind of snowballed downhill. So I apologize for going on for so long, but I feel
no
very
worries.
strongly about this subject.
That is fine. No, so
But yeah.
yeah, like when I didn't even realize like some of the stuff that I had seen like around the time I was watching Power Rangers that had gotten like a resurgence, like Gridman. I didn't know that I had watched. I didn't realize, like, I'm like, why does this stuff look so familiar? Why do all these designs look so familiar to me? And I'm like, Superhero Samurai Cyber Squad.
Yeah.
I used to watch that back when I was little. And I forgot. I just like, it was just in the back of my mind somewhere because I had forgotten about it until the Studio Trigger anime came out. And I was like, whoa.
That is so funny to me because I remember, watching Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad and thinking that it was really similar to Ultraman.
I mean, yeah, because
it's all Subaraya, and
yeah,
and I just think that's so funny because I think I had a conversation with a guy I know at a comic book shop here in town where I was like, well, do you remember Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad? And he's like, yeah, man, I remember that show. That show was crazy. And I said, that's Gridman. Gridman is a sequel, SSS Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad. Gridman is a sequel to the Japanese version of that show. And I watched his eyeballs explode. Like, he could barely comprehend that. I just think that's really funny.
Yeah, and you, didn't you do Gridman art recently, too?
I've done two. I did some art for the Blu-ray release, the American Blu-ray release. I did the Blu-ray release of SSSS. SSSS.
I already own that.
Yeah. Well, it was in the special edition.
Right.
In one of the booklets.
Yeah.
I did a piece of art in the back of that.
Nice.
And I did a bit of Gridman art for a gallery in Tokyo. It was sort of a last minute thing though, and I wish I could have done more with it, but I just got my buddy Josh Perez to color it for me. But it came out really cool. It came out very anime-esque. So I'll have to dig that up and make sure I post it online because I don't think it's available anymore. But yeah, man, that's I love that Gridman is this thing that's just kind of snuck up, and people just when they weren't looking, they were like, "And here's some '90s nostalgia for you."
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think that's all the questions I have. Because I know we could probably both go on about this for ages.
Yeah, I've got stuff to do on my end.
Yeah.
I've got art to work on. So
this has actually been, a pretty standard length for our interviews. Because one of our interviews could have gone on for like hours and hours and hours talking about video games.
Yeah.
So yeah. We're pretty good on time, so don't be too worried about that.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, for sure. You're always welcome back if you want to talk about a new comic or something. If it's tokusatsu related, I have to keep the genre of our like brand.
Yeah, no, I get you,
right
man.
Stuff,
I get you. I actually, you all talk about video games. Hopefully, I'll have some video game stuff to talk about in the not too distant future. So that might be fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Where can people follow your work?
People can find me over at mattfrankart.net. They can also find me on Patreon at patreon.com/mattfrankart. I am also, on Twitter and Instagram and all that. You can find me through mattfrankart.net. I've got a links page that'll link you to everything, like my Instagram, Mattzilla85, and all that. I am fairly regularly on Rage Select on YouTube, where I am doing where I'm doing Let's Play stuff with my co-host Jeff, who and we've done a couple of, like I said, a couple of Godzilla-centric or kaiju-centric episodes through them. And that's about it. I mean, the current thing I have that y'all should try to get a hold of is the Daimajin trilogy. And I know I've got other stuff coming out later this year, so just keep an eye open.
All right. Thank you for coming on once again. And for all our audience at home, stay safe. I hope you enjoyed that interview. And we will see you next time, whenever that is. Matane.